All right, welcome back. So you've totally nailed solving for x in linear equations. But what happens when there's more than one right answer? Well, today we're leveling up to Lesson 5, Linear Inequalities. This is where we unlock the power to find a whole range of solutions. Let's dive right in. Up to this point, we've basically been on a treasure hunt for that one single specific value of x. But let's be real. How often is life that simple? When you're saving up for something, you need at least a certain amount, right? Or when you're driving, you can go no more than the speed limit. See, that's the real world of inequalities, and this is where math starts to solve some really interesting puzzles. So, here's our game plan for today. First, we're going to build our toolkit with the essential rules. Then we'll level up by solving problems step by step. After that, we face the boss level, compound problems. Then we'll see how all this stuff actually applies in the real world. And finally, we'll wrap it all up with a handy cheat sheet to make sure it all sticks. Okay, let's start with the absolute fundamentals. Before we can solve anything, we've got to know the rules of the game. This section is all about building that core inequality toolkit. Pay close attention, because this slide right here is probably the most important one in the whole lesson. Seriously. On the left, you've got your safe operations. Adding, subtracting, no surprises there. It all works just like a regular equation. But on the right, that's the danger zone. And here is the one golden rule you absolutely cannot forget. If you multiply or divide by a negative number, you must flip the inequality sign. Why? Well, think about it on a number line. We all know 3 is less than 5. But what about -3 and -5? All of a sudden, -3 is greater than -5. You flipped the entire relationship. It's a simple flip, but forgetting it is the #1 way to get the wrong answer. All right, now that we've got the rules down, let's actually put them into practice. We're going to work our way through 3 different levels of problems, building up our skills from the basics to the more advanced stuff. Okay, level 1. The goal here is exactly the same as with equations. Get that variable all by itself. We'll move the x terms to one side, the numbers to the other. Now, hold on. Look at that very last step. We're about to divide by -7. What does that mean? Ding, 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 we're in the danger zone. So we take that greater than or equal to sign, we flip it to less than or equal to, and boom, we've got our solution. Level 2 is just a small step up, really. Now we've got variables on both sides, but the process, it's identical. Just gather up your variable terms. In this example, we'll add 7x to both sides, and then isolate that variable. Now notice here, we divide by a positive number at the end. So, no danger zone, no flip. The sign stays exactly where it is. Easy as that. All right, now for a pro tip that is going to make your life so much easier. Fractions, they can look intimidating, I get it, but we can make them all disappear in one single move. All you do is find the lowest common denominator. In this case, it's 12, and multiply the entire thing by it. And just look at that. Poof, the fractions are gone. We're just left with a simple, clean inequality that we can solve in a snap. Okay, you've been training, you've honed your skills, and now it's time. Welcome to the boss-level compound inequalities. This is where we're solving for 2 inequalities that are connected together in one single statement. Now, to take down this boss, we have 2 main strategies in our arsenal. We can either split the problem into 2 separate, smaller pieces, or we can tackle it all at once using something called the sandwich method. Let's check out when to use each one. So, how do you choose your strategy? It's actually super simple. If your variable x is all nice and contained right there in the middle section, the sandwich method is your best friend. It's clean, it's efficient. But if x is scattered around in different parts of the inequality, that's your cue to use the split method and break it down. And here's that sandwich method in action. Our whole mission is just to get x by itself there in the middle, and the rule is simple. Think of it like an actual sandwich. Whatever you do to the middle, you have to do to the top and bottom slices too. So first, we subtract 3 from all 3 parts. Then we divide all 3 parts by 2. And just like that, x is isolated and our solution is right there. Whoa, okay, let's pause and look at this one. It's got everything. But look really closely at that last step. We're dividing by -30. That's our danger zone signal. And here's a super duper critical part. With a compound inequality, you have to flip both signs. This is such a common mistake. People flip one but forget the other. You have to burn this into your brain. Flip both or the whole answer will be wrong. So what happens if the variable isn't tucked neatly in the middle? Well, that's when we call in the split method. We literally just break the problem into 2 smaller, easier inequalities, which we call A and B here. We solve each one all by itself.
The final answer is what we call the intersection. It's the range of numbers that makes both A and B true. Think of it like finding where two roads overlap.
Okay, so we've got all the mechanics down, but what's the point? Why does any of this matter? Let's take a look at how these skills pop up in real-world problems. This is where the math really comes to life.
So meet Daniel. He's planning a road trip. We know how much he's already saved, his hourly pay for tutoring, and his estimated expenses. We can model this entire situation with one inequality. His total money, which is his savings plus his earnings, has to be greater than or equal to his total expenses. We set it up, solve for H, and find out he needs to tutor for at least 13 hours to make the trip happen. That's a real answer to a real-life question.
Here's another great example. William's got $90, and he wants to buy as many juice boxes as he can. So we do the math, and the calculator tells us he can buy up to 35.856 boxes. But wait a minute, you can't walk into a store and buy a fraction of a juice box. This is where that real-world reality check kicks in. We have to round down to 35, because buying 36 would put him over budget. It's a critical thinking step that's just as important as the math itself. You know, a huge part of solving these real-world problems is just being able to translate plain old English into the language of math. Look at this example. Phrases like more than just mean add, and is greater than becomes the greater than symbol. Learning to break down sentences like this is the absolute key to setting up the problem correctly in the first place. Wow, we have covered a ton of ground. So let's wrap this all up with a quick, powerful summary of the most important things to remember. This is your final cheat sheet. Here it is, short and sweet. Number 1, the golden rule. Never, ever forget to flip that sign when you multiply or divide by a negative. 2, interval notation. Parentheses mean the end number isn't included, brackets mean it is. 3, compound strategies. Know when to use the sandwich versus the split method. And number 4, the reality check. Always, always ask yourself if your final answer actually makes sense in the real world. And that's a wrap on linear inequalities. You now have a complete toolkit for solving for a whole range of possibilities, from simple problems all the way to complex, real-world scenarios. So my question for you is this. Now that you've got the skills, what challenge are you going to go out and solve?